Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Today we consider the country of Ghana. Ghana accounts for 11% of the world's cocoa, and the country has about 720,000 cocoa farmers, but they are barely able to meet their daily food needs. To know more about the situation in Ghana, it is my pleasure to introduce to you today the Metropolitan Archbishop of the capital of Ghana, Archbishop Charles Palmer Buckle. Welcome, Archbishop, and thank you for being on our program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what exactly is the problem? That there is so much to do, so much work to do, but the poverty is immense.
Sometimes I wonder what the figures mean. There are cocoa farmers because they produce the cash crop for export. But there are other farmers, what we call the subsistent farmers, who grow cassava, who grow yams, who grow maize, who grow many other foodstuffs. And the truth of the matter is that Ghana started growing cash crop cocoa in order to export to earn foreign exchange.
But that's the figures of the United Nations.
Well, you know, the United Nations figures always have some ideological meaning to it.
So what is it?
I am just coming from Ghana. I know that according to the same, World Bank, according to the same IMF, Ghana is gradually getting towards food sufficiency. So I wonder what the figures are, you see. Now, if I am being told that cocoa farmers can hardly survive because they are not growing enough food for themselves, I would say the answer is yes and no. It is possible many are only worried about growing cash crop in order to earn more money and maybe neglecting subsistent farming, growing foodstuffs that they can actually consume and also sell in our market. But I am aware.
Does it mean that these cocoa farmers have to produce their own food at the same time?
In fact, many cocoa farms have under the same farm cocoyam farms. They have cassava farms. They have maize farms. And these are seasonal crops that are grown in between the time when they harvest the cocoa. So I'd like to say that yes, Ghana is not yet food sufficient. Ghana does not have yet food security. I would agree with you. But I think we are working gradually towards that. I'd like to say the government is making some effort. It may not be the best according to world standards, but we are getting there.
That sounds very positive, but at the same time, reports say that in these cocoa farms, there are many children working.
I have heard about it, and when people talk about children working in the cocoa farms, I'd like to make a distinction. The children of the cocoa farmers themselves help in taking care of the farms of their parents as, workers, in order not to have to hire too many workers and have to pay them heavy sums of money. Then there are those who come to work sometimes from different parts of the country. They come into the farms, they offer service to help in harvesting the cocoa farms, in weeding the cocoa farms. Now, it depends. If they are below 18 years, they are considered children. Whether they are being exploited or they are being given adequate remuneration for what they do, I cannot really tell. I know there is a lot of exploitation that goes on. But I also know that for us, in our culture, I come from Accra. I come from a family of 12 children. It was normal for our upbringing that we did some work to help subsidize the family income. My father was a pharmacist. My mother was a housefrau. But we had to. I sold bread. At the age of 8, 9, 10, I'll go around selling bread. I think like any young person in America or in the UK or maybe here will go around selling newspapers. I sold it to subsidize the family income, to have something in my pocket, but it was also to help us learn to be self-reliant. There are today families where they just cannot make ends meet. So they stop their children from going to school in order to sell.
And that is
child labor.
Yeah.
And I am not in favor. We are doing whatever we can about that. But there are families that are self-reliant, and the children do this in order to help take care of daddy's shop, or to help take care of mommy's, shop where she sells, cosmetics and the rest.
But did you, for example, yourself were able to go to school every day?
Oh yes, definitely. My father and my mother made sure that we never failed going to school. And they made sure that we had everything we needed to be able to go to school. But we were also proud to say, I bought this with my own money. I bought that for my school with my own money. I have a young man in my house who is in the university. He does gardening in my house, keeps my gardens clean so that I can pay him something for his schooling. I think that is also positive. Then, of course, as I said, there are some people who get maid servants, get young boys and girls, and they send them out to sell. When the kids come back, they take all the money from them. They do not give them what the children need to go to school. That is bad. That is sad.
Is there an answer of the Catholic Church for this problem?
Okay, in Accra, I'll tell my archdiocese, for instance, we have what we call the Catholic Action for Street Children. We have another group called Hope for Life. In the case of the street children, we bring them off the streets. We keep them in a place. We give them access to hot water bath, to food, to education, informal education. Some go back to the street, earn money and bring it, and we help them, keep the money so that when they need it for something else, it will be better. Then in the case of Hope for Life, these are children who are, some of them are lame, handicapped, in wheelchairs. We bring them together with other youth, teach them baking, how to bake bread, teach them computer, ICT, teach them other forms of, formation program and training. I know of another place where we call the Refuge, where we gather a lot of these children in the cities. You see, urban apostolate is very difficult. A lot of social work must be done. We have that also. It's not only the Catholic Church. I know the other Protestant churches do something similar. The Islamic, religious bodies do something similar. And the social welfare is also doing something. But there's still a lot that we can do to improve upon the position and the situation for the children, and especially to educate their parents to understand why it is important for the child to go to school, to learn, to acquire knowledge in order to be able in future to stand on his own.
But how can you educate the parents, or how can you tell the parents how important it is? What do you tell them?
It is very difficult. It is very difficult. I think in many parishes, we have various societies, like the Catholic Women's Association, the Christian Mothers Association, the Catholic Men's Association, the various youth groups. And those are the places where we have access to the young people, to the parents, to teach them what are the rights of their children, how they must respect the dignity of their children, how they must give them education, why they must sacrifice for the children to go to school so that the children will in future take care of them. We don't always succeed, but we are trying.
But for you, for yourself, what did your parents tell you how important education was?
Well, I will have to say thank you to God. My mother had schooling. My father had also schooling, formal schooling. And so for them, schooling was your priority. And if you did not go to school, or if you went to school and you were playing the truant, running away from school, you were disciplined for that. Another thing was, if you did well in school, they rewarded you. You got a good, reward, a good shirt, a good pair of shoes to say, well done.
In an interview, you've said that African values are in danger because of the West. Can you explain this to us?
It's very difficult to understand sometimes. The African loves life, and every African would like to have children. What is the danger now? A lot of our young girls, a lot of our mothers have been introduced to the so-called the rights for abortion, the rights for contraception. And now that is a value, so-called a human or a woman's right, that is being forced on our countries by the Western world, by the UNFPA, by the World Bank and the IMF. They say, to show that a country is developing, you have to respect the rights of women. We agree that there are things that are done to women in Africa which is not good.
For example?
But, okay,
what is not good?
For instance, female, genital mutilation, cases where women do not have access to, credit to be able to run their own businesses. There are widowhood rights that are not right. But to tell a woman that your body is yours, you can do anything you want with it, and therefore you can abort a child who has a right to live in your womb anytime you want to, it becomes a disvalue. We have what we call the Maputo Protocol, Article 14, which says women should have access to reproductive rights and the right to abort when they want to. This is not correct. It's against anything the African stands for.
But is that the African value or the Christian value that you...
No, it's always been first and foremost an African value, cherishing life, the life of children, cherishing life, the life of adults, until they die. We've always cherished it. You have people talking about euthanasia. Euthanasia is coming from the Western world. You understand? So these are some of the values that go contrary to African values. And in the name of education, in the name of the so-called Millennium Development Goals, sometimes there is too much emphasis on what we call birth control, to the detriment of rather helping the people develop their talents and in order to be able to produce more. So I wished that these institutions will rather help us take decisions that do not go contrary to our values of life, so that we can improve upon those values of productivity, of development, without necessarily cutting down on the so-called population. The population is too big. Let's control population. So those are where we get into conflict with some of the Western, values. Another thing, for instance, marriage for our people is not between man and woman. Marriage for our people is between two families. And marriage brings together four families. The two families of the woman and the two families of the man. So it creates a larger family relationship. Today, the emphasis is on individualism. You are alone, your rights matter. It's not the community's value, the community's rights that are important. And that goes contrary to it, you see. But when it comes to Christianity, Christianity values life. The life of the unborn, the life of the handicapped child, the life of the adult, old person. We must therefore bring Christian values more to our people than Western values. Christianity talks about marriage as being, indissoluble because of the children. It's children who suffer most when a family breaks down. So let us help the couple to ensure that the family does not break down so that the children would have more. So let them know indissolubility of marriage means we should do everything to help the families stay together. So this is where I value Christianity very highly and not Western values of individualism, of, so-called rights that are not really rights. Another very sad story. Recently, the Prime Minister of the UK told African countries that if we do not accept gay rights and homosexual rights, they are not going to give us financial aid. I mean, this is totally unfair. It does not respect the sovereignty of the African nations to decide what they want to do. It is contrary to solidarity, universal solidarity. And to say because you have the money, we have to accept something that is totally contrary to our people's thinking. Homosexuality, gay rights. Then I think they do not respect what they taught us is the sovereignty of the state. And that is where I think sometimes Europe gives and the Western world gives signals that are not at all Christian, very unchristian.
So that makes you very angry.
Not only angry, sorry. I'm very sorry for our heads of state. I'm very sorry also for, Christian Europe, Christian Western world, because it's giving a wrong picture of what Christianity is. So some of our people say, well, if that is what now Christian Europe or post-Christian Europe is telling us to do, we might as well go back to our traditional religions. You see the danger. So we wished the Christians in Europe will stand up against their own governments, their own international societies that tend to manipulate our cultures for their own selfish ends. So we need Christians in Europe to be our advocates here, in Europe and in the Western world.
What can you as an Archbishop do in your own country to make sure these values are kept?
I would be honest with you, it's an uphill task. One, most of our leaders are Christian educated. They've gone through our Christian schools and they've gone through our, Christian formation. Unfortunately, we have what we call political expediency.
What does that mean?
A person comes to power for 4 years. According to the indices coming from the World Bank, the Millennium Development Goal, the IMF, the EU and the rest, there are certain indicators to show a country is developing, to show he is doing well. He must keep inflation at a certain level. He must make sure that there is, so-called women's rights and so-called gay rights and so-called homosexual rights. And because of that, the head of state is forced by those who give him money to project values that even he himself does not believe in. And this is where, when a person is not well formed, cannot stand on his feet, against even the Western world, then we get into trouble. Recently, my head of state, Professor John Evans Atta Mills, had to tell Britain and had to tell the Western world, I am sorry if homosexual rights are the only condition for development and for aid, then we will have to rethink. You need people like that. Other African heads have also said no to it. But there are others too who, unfortunately, they cannot.
But don't you think you, as a Archbishop, you have to work yourself very small? Because you cannot always say that it's the president.
One thing I will tell you we thank God for, in my country, Ghana at least, not only the Catholic Church, the Protestant churches, the Muslim religion, we easily have access to our governments and our heads of state, and we are able to discuss with them what the ordinary people feel and what they say. Of course, he has to make the political decision. We as bishops, we as men and women of religion, we can only form our people with ethics and morality and expect that when they go into parliament, when they go into government, when they are in the judiciary, they will know what to stand for. In Ghana, at least we have that, and we thank God for that.
So that means you have many Catholic schools?
Ghana, the Catholic Church runs about 27% of all schools in the country. So you can think of at least 1/5 of public education is in the hands of the Catholic Church. And we have a very good partnership between government and state. These public schools, we have the teachers, we hire them and the rest. Government pays their salaries. Government subsidizes some of the development. But even there, sometimes when they get aid from the Western world, they are told you cannot use that aid for faith-based organizations. What does that mean? It means you cannot give money to Catholic schools. You cannot give money to Methodist or Islamic schools. That is not fair. You see the point? Because 80% of those who go to our Catholic schools are not Catholic, and we don't make them Catholics. So that is about education. Another thing I can tell you about is we run about 21% of hospitals, health care in the country. And there too, there is a very good partnership. We employ Catholic doctors, Catholic nurses, non-Catholic doctors, non-Catholic nurses. We take care of everybody. Most of our hospitals are found in the most remote areas where government has no medical facility. And we work so well together with government without any difficulty. But in the fight against HIV and AIDS, recently, we are being told if we don't distribute condoms, then we won't get any more help from, the UNFPA. Why should that be? We have abstention, we have fidelity, we have chastity. It's only in one aspect that we disagree with, the secular world. So we should be helped to take care of the 80% who come to our hospitals who are not Catholics. We are not going to impose upon them Catholic ethics, Catholic morality. But our Catholic doctors and our Catholic nurses cannot be forced to do what is against their conscience. So you see the dilemma that sometimes we find ourselves in. But we are still providing education. We are still providing health care.
But with all these projects you propose us, it seems that Ghana is a very Catholic country, but it's only 5%, I think?
No, Ghana is 15% Catholic, a little bit more, 16% Catholic. But we have about 18% Christians who are Protestants. And then we have another 24% who are also Christians, but Pentecostals. We work very well together with them. Interreligious dialogue and ecumenism, we work very well together with them. Even the Muslims, we have 16% Muslim population. There is something in Ghana called the Ghana Council of Religions for Peace. We sit with the Muslims, we talk about conflicts, conflict prevention, conflict, resolution, and we do a lot in common. So this is maybe why Ghana is relatively peaceful. We will do everything we can to keep it that way.
And then how about the vocations to the Catholic Church? Are there any vocations, new vocations?
Plenty. I'd say plenty because, we are building major seminaries. Unfortunately, we don't have enough money to build these seminaries. Unfortunately, we don't have money to train priests to be good formators for our seminarians who will go on to become priests. And so we need help from anywhere to be able to provide the infrastructure, the seminary structures, to provide also professors, who come and teach them, and to provide adequately for the upbringing of seminarians. And we are hoping, in fact, we have many priests and religious from Ghana already here in Europe, offering, what we call pastoral ministry as fidei donum, working in some of the schools as teachers, as chaplains and the rest. And we are ready to offer more if we will be helped to train more, because we have a lot of vocations in Africa, to the priesthood, to the sisterhood, to the brotherhood, to religious life.
Thank you very much, Archbishop Charles Palmer Buckle, for telling us about your own country, Ghana.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching our program Where God Weeps. And if you want to know more on how you can help the Catholic Church in Ghana, then please consider the information at the end of our program. And we hope to see you again next week. Take care.